Wow, just wow. Never in my dreams would I have imagined that an anime about witches. And sure, we've covered some heavy topics so far. I never would have thought that an anime about witches would just kind of do the flip and do a complete 180 on the gore fest. I kind of need a moment, guys. I just need a little moment just to get my head around what the episode we just saw was. And to be fair, I think everybody here we need a moment just to take a break, think about witches for a second. Just wow. Yes, this is your Journey of Elaina, episode 9 breakdown. What an episode. The title for today's episode is A Deep Sorrow from the Past. It's not just the past, I think, in this case, is going to be affected by this sorrow. Hello and welcome to the channel. I am Clockwork Noodles. Today we are talking about Journey of Elaina, episode 9. If you haven't already, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Very shortly, we will have a Winter 2021 anime episode going up. So what are my top animes for the fall season? What do I intend to watch, release videos on next season? Next season looking to be the quieter of the seasons, and I do have a few sequels lined up. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel so you get informed when that goes up and airs. And hopefully you guys will see something I'm reviewing that you too will be watching next season. As well, before we go into the WTF fest that is the episode, make sure you guys as well are subscribed to the Discord channel if you have Discord. I am going to be building that up to something bigger when we get a little bit bigger with more people. But for now, you guys can abuse the fact that whenever I post, you get a notification sent to your phone that there is a video going up on a channel. So you will never miss a release. Fantastic stuff, right? So let's take it on. Let's look at the beast that was episode 9. I was not imagining that anything like this would come out of Journey of Elaina. And sure, I am reviewing some pretty dark anime this season. I've seen a lot of gore in things like Moriarty. I am doing things like the Golden Kamui, and we've had a few deaths over there. To be fair, we've had things in this anime so far, like we've had the town which was murdered by dragons, we've had the man eating plants, we've had death in this anime already, but never to the degree of this, what we have had this week. Have we had it? I was actually going to make fun of the explicit warning at the start, but I don't think I can now because I think the warning was needed. So initially I was like, oh, why do they need a warning? They've already had some stuff. No way is this going to be dark. I can't imagine what they're going to cover. Wow, just wow. What should have given it away straight away is we don't get an OP. There is no OP at the start of this episode. And the warning as well, something serious is going down, and they weren't lying. And I can't believe I actually doubted Elaina for actually really meaning that they were going to go there. It's one hell of a heavy episode. There's also a lot of questions raised philosophically. It is also one of those episodes which brings up things like paradoxes, and yes, we dabble in time travel, which is always going to be a bit of a hard thing to talk about because time travel is still one of those things where, whether it's Marvel, whether it's anime, I think apart from things like Steins Gate, it's a very difficult one to convey, and obviously or not, there's a lot of plot holes because time travel just seems to be that hurdle which a lot of series can't get over because there's always issues. So very impressed that we had to roll it into perhaps the bloodiest episode probably for the season. Gotta be a question, is this the goriest episode so far for fall 2021? I'm trying to think of if anything else I've seen. I mean, I'm watching things like Jujutsu Kaisen. I don't think there's anything on the level of blood like this. Maybe Higurashi. Maybe, because some of the stuff they've done is pretty bloody. So it's definitely trying to play for a award of some sort, but whether it's not going to be best animated season by any shot, but it's definitely trying to play for an award of some sort. Maybe the bloodiest episode, who knows. Also to note, there are no credits at all either. So we get no OP, no ED, there's no happy entry or anything. We do get a full-on credits roll, but we get black screen. So this episode, they are definitely not pulling any punches on. This is a serious episode. Do a little shout out to the guys right at the start, even though it just feels pointless now with the episode that we just had. I just need something light to cling to, guys. I need something different. We shout out to the guys who are the Easter eggs. These guys seem to follow us around city to city. Just shout out to them. The bell tolls, which should have kind of rang in my brain that something bad was going to go down. If you are watching all my releases, you know I watch Moriarty. I will point stuff out like this 24/7. I normally point it out. With Elaina, I haven't really needed to go anywhere near this level of depth. I think I've become complacent. I haven't even been looking for it. So I didn't even pay attention to the fact that the bell was tolling. And I really should have, because that bell isn't tolling for good reasons. It's bringing in a warning. It's tolling the hour. It's a warning. This town as well looks very German. It reminds me of Germany. You've got currywurst, guys, or wurst in general. Oh, my puns are the worst. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to make something after the episode. We see a very different Elaina, and the episode starts very differently from what we've seen so far. Elaina is out of money. She's very hungry, and it's a very different start. We do see as well the red leaves around her. I should have picked up on the red. I didn't. I didn't even pay attention because I've not had to do that level of analysis on this anime before. We're going into the autumn. There's red leaves everywhere. Red often as a colour of warning. It's a colour of blood. Should have been warning me immediately that buckle your seatbelts, you're in for one hell of a ride. Elaina on the bench is all by herself, and it looks very different. And as if by magic, a flyer blows up by her leg, and it's calling for a witch to do some ultra short-term work, but the pay is amazing. I was like, is this a scam? This is going to be a scam. Is Elaina about to get scammed? To be fair, she doesn't get scammed, and there is a chance to have a lot of money. It's just, when there's a lot of money involved, there's normally a very high price to pay. We are introduced to the lavender witch Estelle. We find out Elaina is 18. So I have already said that time in this anime is really, really hard to track. I never know how far time's gone by because she's traveling as well, give and take months. So it's very easy to imagine that quite a few years have gone by. We know she was 14 when she became a witch. So it has been 4 years since that very first episode we've had. And we get a moment where Estelle remarks that she's she's younger than her. But Elaina then kind of takes it as, as she normally does, as a bit of an insult, fires back that it took Estelle 3 years to become a witch, whilst it only took her a year. And it does become this quite awkward interchange. To be fair, anybody who believes that Elaina needed her comeuppance or needed a kind of a bit of a karma moment, she definitely got it in this episode. Definitely get to see a different side to Elaina this episode as well. Elaina jumps immediately to go, how much do I get paid, where she hasn't even asked what the job is. And the amount of money that gets thrown up onto the desk literally makes her drop the cracker. That's when those red flags really should have been flickering up, because nobody will give you a lot of money for nothing. Sadly enough, we're not in a world, even in her magic world, we're not in a world where you get money for nothing. You will have to do something. And we know this is going to be a very dark episode because we've already had that warning. The job initially is just, you need to accompany me. We get a bit of a very dark history. And I was like, oh, maybe this is the dark history bit. Maybe this is just a warning because there's some very quite dark visuals going on. 10 years ago in the 2nd District, we get a murder. And it's so infamous that there is a play in a book based on it. It centres around a robber who breaks into a wealthy couple's house. They kill the family whilst the daughter is out shopping. The daughter is then sent to her uncle where she is apparently abused. This makes her hate the world. It makes her start to become more and more unstable, where it leads her to kill her uncle and then she becomes the murderer in the 2nd District. She starts to go on a killing spree. The visuals this episode are going to be very difficult. I can't show a great deal because there is blood absolutely everywhere, flying left, right and centre. If I have a picture up on a screen longer than I normally do, I have a habit of trying to keep them up for about 20 seconds and then flick them out. But if it's up for longer, it's simply because I can't show as much as I would normally because there is blood everywhere and YouTube doesn't like human blood. We get some quite nice visuals with the candle and the pictures. It seems like Estelle is still holding a candle for Selena. She holds regrets, and we know she holds regrets. Estelle used to be very close to Selena, apparently, even though I'm going to keep saying apparently now. Estelle was the one who ended up catching Selena, and she was put to death by her own hand. And Estelle has regrets, and she wants to believe that she could have saved Selena. She wants to go back 10 years ago to prevent the murder of her parents, to hopefully prevent her from going unstable, insane, and becoming a murderer. There is something I really do believe in, and it definitely plays up in this episode. I believe that everything happens for a reason, which probably makes me a fatalist, perhaps. If you are to go back and, say, prevent the Titanic sinking, there would have been a more disastrous ship sinking at some point later in that period. The Titanic sinking allowed us a chance to reevaluate ships and lifeboats, and its sinking, no matter how tragic it really was, its sinking taught us a very valuable lesson through a very hard manner of teaching us. If Titanic, say, had survived, there would have been a bigger ship with maybe more people on it, with no lifeboats on, sinking at some point, which would have replaced it. I always believed that something bad would still happen, or if something was meant to happen, it will find a way of happening. So when she said, I'm going to go back in time to prevent this murder, and I'm going to stop the parents being murdered, and I'll save Selena, I wasn't convinced. I figured that something bad would happen, and I was pretty much onto the fact that it wouldn't save Selena from the start. But that's just because of the way I believe things happen for the sake of happening. I was expecting her to, even if it hadn't gone the way it did, I had two theories what would happen. Selena being the actual murderer in the end, it was high on my list. It was very high on my list. Another thing on my list was that they were going to go back, stop it happening, go back in time and find out that Selena had still killed people. Something had still happened and she had still gone unstable and killed people. I had a theory it wasn't going to end well, let's just put it at that. A quick little side note to lavender, what lavender means. Lavender means devotion. It means silence, caution, and purity. We know Estelle is devoted to this idea of trying to save her best friend, but we also know that she's kind of suffering in silence because of it, and she does seem to hold quite the pure heart. We are introduced to the idea that magic has a price once again, and that her magic wasn't enough, so something else has to be sacrificed. And this is a nice link to a few episodes this season where we saw memories being exchanged for magic. We've seen somebody giving up their voice to make that town full of people who couldn't lie. It's nice to see that we're starting to get a bit more information on magic in this world, and there are limitations. You can't simply go around willy-nilly making these big, amazing spells without paying a price. Estelle's sacrifice is her own blood, but apparently it is not enough. So she says that I'm going to be essentially sacrificing my own magic. By the time I go back 10 years, I'm going to have no magic. That's why she needs Elaina there. And we are introduced to the idea of these magic rings, which allow them to share magic. So she can obviously go back, still be able to do what she needs to do with the help of her magic, because she needs her magic to help her do what she needs. Elaina actually accepts, and I wasn't expecting her to go, yeah, sure, fine, I'll do it. Because you can see her looking more and more nervous as she finds out that the blood's been sacrificed, and it does seem that Elaina starts to reconsider in her head, but she then goes, I'm interested in seeing what the country looked like 10 years ago. I wasn't expecting her to actually accept. It does also seem like there's a lot of information missed out. I would have asked for more info, because obviously they go back and there's actually an hour time limit. Elaina accepting on the terms, wanting to see what the country was like. She maybe wouldn't have if she was told that you only get an hour time limit, because you can't really see what the country's like 10 years ago if there's an hour time limit. Estelle looks really nervous as she's about to go and do the final moment, but when she does, the entire screen goes blue and green, and the magic level is absolutely insane. But it works. We do end up 10 years ago, and we go back to a bell tolling. So we've got the same open, but it's spring. Spring is it's often seen as a better month. It's obviously the birth of things. It's a good month. It's a positive month. Unlike autumn, which we opened on, which is the death of summer. We are introduced to our time limit, where both of them will get sent back once the clock strikes 6. The nice little thing as well, the rings interlink with a red little line. Reminds me of the red string of fate kind of thing, even though this isn't the same and these two aren't destined to be together. It had that nice little aesthetic going on. I do like the fact they've included the little line. The plan simply is we're going to get the parents out before the robber has a chance to appear. We will then ambush the robber and drive them off. I've even mentioned in my little notes, because guys know I write notes, butterfly effect. And I kept putting, you might stop one thing happening, but what if them stopping Selena from going on that murder rampage? What if Selena had actually killed murderers? What happens if she herself had killed bad people? So there's going to be things like butterfly effects. You going back to alter one little thing could have a big effect, although the anime tries to get around it. She does say the future will not be changed. We get a bit of time travel explained in this anime, how it works in this world. The future that they've come from, where she had to kill Selena, that is still the future they're going to return to. That line will never change. But they have gone back to a world to knock on the effect, make sure that the murder doesn't happen. They're going to get there before this happened, where a new line is going to sprout off and it will continue on its own line onto a new future. This is very similar to the philosophical idea of the multiverse, the many universe theory. There are many, many universes in the world which are just out of reach where we can't interact with one another. There is another me right now. Maybe there is a me who decided to record a little bit later. Maybe there's a me who decided that, I don't know, I stopped watching Elaina 4 episodes ago. Who knows? There's many worlds out there, and the idea is that each single one of them is very similar to our own, but small things change. One little thing will change. So maybe right now, you listening to me is wearing a blue t-shirt. But there is another world out there. You're listening to me happily wearing a red t-shirt. So that is the idea of the multi-universe theory. It's a philosophical thing that I do buy into. At the end of the day, we can't connect to them. So this is where Elaina asking her question to me didn't seem to be rude. Elaina simply asked, is there any point to doing this? Because you're not going to be able to go back to Selena being alive. You're going to go back to the timeline where she's dead. So you won't know what the future became because you won't get to go and see that universe. Estelle pointing out that she's rude, I don't quite think she is. I do think that maybe Estelle was the one who needed a bit of a talking to before actually going through with doing something this big, because she doesn't know what her meddling is going to lead to. And normally they'll call it a paradox. It will cause a paradox or something. And thankfully, Elaina does not run into herself at this point in time. It's a logical way of thinking, the fact that Estelle isn't going to know. Maybe just changing one tiny thing would occur. How does she know that maybe she stops, let's say there was a robber and she stops the robber from killing them. How does she not know that maybe later down the line, maybe Selena will then die or something? Maybe saving the parents will then later down the line, Selena has an accident. There are so many possibilities. Estelle thinking that, it's going to be fine, I'll save her and she'll turn into a good person. It's a very almost naive way of thinking, in a sense. This episode really did make me question a lot of things, and I do like a good anime episode which makes you really question things. Estelle simply says that it's going to make me feel better, so it will make her feel better knowing that there is a universe where she is alive and well and saved. We actually spot Selena heading to market, because obviously we know that she was out at the time, apparently. Estelle goes and she hugs her, and she cries, but Selena doesn't know who she is, and she does jump quite quickly to the idea of calling her a pervert. At the time, I thought they were playing it off as something funny, but that should have probably given us a warning because of what actually happens. So, little red flag, but a very subtle red flag there. She ends up running away from Estelle because she doesn't know who she is. Estelle does the thing which I really don't think she should have done, and she says, I'm from the future. You're never supposed to admit you're from the future when you go back to the future. You don't say it. It normally causes a paradox. It just should be left alone. Also, it does lead Selena to, somehow she does actually believe her, and to start questioning the future herself. We meet Selena's parents, and this is the bit of the plan which does go down quite nicely. And we are able to convince them with Estelle going, I'm a half-sister of Estelle, come with me, my father wants to discuss some things. And they willingly do agree. So the first part of the plan, absolutely fine. And we see Elaina just waiting for the robber, and she's told you need to wait for Estelle to come back, so we'll apprehend the robber. Estelle doesn't come back. Whilst Estelle isn't there and she hasn't come back, Elaina starts to think about how odd it is that somebody would go to such extreme lengths over a robbery. The fact that the parents were repeatedly stabbed. And she says, is it a grudge/revenge killing which is covered up? So is it actually a cover-up that it's been played off as a robbery, but it was actually a revenge, something darker? And the ring starts to light up, which we already know it links to Estelle. And so if they share magic, so we know that her magic is now being used. And she still says, Estelle must be fighting somebody, it must be the robber. And to be fair to her, she's like, by the time I'll get there, the robber will be apprehended because, a knife against magic doesn't stand a chance. The light cuts from the ring and she turns the corner and Estelle is, I wrote dead. I thought she was dead when we saw it, but she's not. She's apparently kind of knocked out and very, very injured by this point. And it's Selena. The reason why it made sense that the knife actually overpowers the magic is because Estelle wasn't expecting it to be Selena. She had no idea it was them. So she must have gone face to face with Selena and gone up to her. And that's when obviously the knife actually overpowers magic. It was a thing which played in my head initially. I was like, wait, how is Selena being able to overpower magic? Well, because she wasn't expecting it to be Selena. I already knew it. I wasn't shocked by the fact it was Selena who kills them. She kills her parents for the second time. She starts to threaten Elaina. There is a lot of blood here. I can't show it. They are using some very graphic details of her literally having blood around her mouth, and she smiles and there's a very bloody smile. The parents apparently were the ones who actually abused Selena, and she was even as far as being sexually abused by her father, where they were faking a happy family. So Estelle never thought anything was wrong because it was fake. So she was buying into the fact that there was a fake happy family. She thought that it was the uncle maybe causing Selena to go and do what she did. But it's actually the parents who abused Selena. So us now going back to sort the parents and save the parents doesn't help the fact that it was the parents who caused Selena to go crazy, turn into the murderer she has become. Estelle is the one who really needed to actually think things through before doing it, because she didn't know the full story, and she's come back and her actions don't actually mean anything now, because saving the parents doesn't help anything because the parents are the cause of the problem. It was originally Selena who kills her parents. Selena then starts to ask about the future, which is why you never tell people when you're from the future. Guys, you just don't. If you guys somehow do get to go back to the past, don't tell your past self that you're from the future. It's bad. Just don't do it. She says, "What is future me now doing?" Where Elaina says you were killed by your best friend, and Selena said, "But I don't have a best friend." Poor Estelle. If anything, it's just I feel bad for Estelle, but she really did need to think more about doing something as dramatic as this. I was expecting that 6 o'clock to chime at any second before, so I was expecting him to leave Selena alive as a murderer. But in this, if that was the case, it's kind of like, with Estelle gone, who is going to kill Selena? But then I remembered that, do we get two Estelles? So technically the Estelle from this time period will still kill Selena. Lots of questions. Again, always plenty of questions when it comes to an anime, a film, a movie which deals with time and time travel. And Elaina tells Selena that Estelle kills you because you become a murderer, which initially looks like it shocks her. So it does look like it suddenly makes her shocked. But it doesn't. It ends up with her going in to try killing Elaina. I was quite worried because it does look like she isn't stopping. And I was like, Elaina is taking quite a bit of time to react. Maybe this is actually what she ends up kicking herself for later at the end. Elaina doesn't really react, and she doesn't defend herself. She looks like she kind of raises the light, but she doesn't cast a spell. And it's actually the blocking by the somehow alive Estelle who actually saves Elaina from being stabbed. I can't show any of this because it's a very bloody scene. There is a barrage of magic. Obviously, Estelle is so angry learning that it was Selena all this time and she was tricked. Very, very angry because she thought she was her best friend. Selena didn't think that way at all. And we just see this barrage of magic. It's a very bloody... She's even going, ouch, ouch, ouch. But because she's so mentally unstable, she's just laughing at the same time. And the way Selena is, that's laughing and showing absolutely no remorse at all, drives Estelle to start matters into her own hands. She goes to try retaking her head off. So she gets... The spell's quite gruesome, where it looks like a collar. It reminds me of current One Piece arc with the Wano arc. And Luffy has the collar on, and apparently if he goes out of the ring, it's going to cut his head off. It really reminds me of that because it looks like a ring and it starts to suffocate her. She starts to laugh and she says, if you take my head and you're going to try and kill me, you're going to be the murderer. We do get to see Elaina actually pleading. This is a new side to Elaina. We are seeing that very scared childlike Elaina. The fact that she says, you need to think about this, you need to stop, wait. But we can see that her magic is being drained from her, which ends up with her trying desperately to take the ring off before Estelle can actually become the murderer and kill Selena. So we see Elaina actually managing to remove the ring. This is when things get even more bloody than before, more blood, because the green light that I presume was the magic that Estelle had cast in exchange anyway, it starts to appear. And she even says, I don't need memories of you because you're just a murderer. And she's very, very angry and she starts to cry blood. It doesn't make sense to a little bit later what she's actually doing at this moment in time, because I was initially thinking maybe she's about to die because she's obviously given up all of her magic and she's about to kill herself because it's too much power coming out of her because she's already traded something to get the magic. But it makes sense a little bit later on. The clock actually saves us at this point. It hits 6. And as Selena's head falls off, so she does actually behead her, the two are able to be sent back to their own time. Ends the gore fest that is this episode. When we go back, we can see that Estelle in the present actually vaguely remembers Elaina, but doesn't remember Selena. So when she said, I don't need memories of you, She actually sacrificed her own memories to get some more magic powers to obviously finish off Selena. She's lost her magic. She doesn't remember Selena. And it does raise the question, can you pick and choose what you lose? So it does look like in exchange you can actually go, okay, I'll sacrifice my memories or I'll sacrifice my voice. It adds a bit of an interesting element rather than it being more scary that you lose something and you don't know what you're going to lose. Can you imagine how scary it is if you're about to pay a very high price for magic, but you don't know what you're about to lose? That would have made for a bit more of a very nervous mechanic, a bit more interesting mechanic if they had actually gone down that route. Estelle looks at the pictures all around her and just goes, who is that person to me? Where Elaina says it doesn't matter anymore. And she runs off. She knocks the money on the ground and doesn't take the money because even this is too much for Elaina. As much as Elaina does have this arrogant air to her, and a lot of people don't like her because she comes across as arrogant and she's unfeeling. This is a lot to bear. She is still, admittedly, I still think she's very, very childlike in how she is. And obviously, she left her house at 14. She's still very naive in her worldviews. This really did affect her, and we do get to see at the end of her on the bench. She is affected by everything mentally, and she's there crying, literally crying on the bench. And she has seen she's seen Estelle murder Selena with her own hands. It's a very gruesome scene that we've all had to witness here as the audience as well. And she's killed her best friend twice. We know that Estelle has ended up killing her best friend twice. Elena's hat blows away in the wind, and the tears just keep on coming where we get, I'm just an ordinary traveller. I'm just an ordinary witch. I'm inexperienced. I was unable to do anything, where it ends very, very quite solemnly on her crying. And we see the leaves falling down, then autumn always being the death, sometimes death of innocence. Maybe this is the death of Elaina who cannot go back to how she was before. A very, very sad ending. It rolls into the credits. And that, as we said, that's it. There's no OP. That's it. It ends. It ends on her crying. It's a very sad ending with representing, obviously, red, blood, death of how she is. Elaina is probably also getting to the point when she's 18 now. She's lost that childlike state. She can no longer continue as she was. And we know with the way she now sees herself as being inexperienced, unable to act, she is no longer the same Elaina who we have seen up until this point. So this episode, as dark and as gore-fest, and it's definitely been the heaviest hitting episode of the entire season, this episode is a changing point. So far, the hardest episode to actually record, to be fair. Elena's generally something which is quite nice. I'll get it recorded in about 20 minutes and then I can edit it and it's up quite fast. I already know, without even looking at how far in, that this is going to be longer and I expect to have, obviously, more to say. Just because so much actually came up in the episode and it was a complete tonal shift. I sometimes would joke about a tonal shift if we get like a light sad moment in a happy anime. This is a tonal shift. This is what happens. The character Elaina is now different. And I think the fact that she's angry because she literally stood there in front of a girl coming towards her trying to kill her. She couldn't react. That she didn't cast a spell. And she's angry at herself being able to do nothing. The situation has repeated itself. She went back in time for no reason. Estelle has achieved nothing. Adding to maybe Elena's frustration that she couldn't change the situation. And she is now regretting that. And it's going to be very interesting next week to see where we go. Are we going to see a very different form of Elaina? Are we going to see a more grown-up version? Is this going to mature her? How is this episode going to affect Elaina in the last 3 episodes? I am more than curious to see what's going to happen in the last 3 episodes and how Elaina has been affected. Again, please make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. There is a video going up very shortly. Release schedule: Monday, Tuesday, we have Moriarty. Tuesday, Wednesday, we have Golden Kamui. Wednesday, Thursday morning is Ikebukuro Westgate Park. Wednesday afternoon, Thursday is Noodles. And Friday is your journey of Elaina. This week's episode was unexpected. It's a nice change to be able to get my teeth into diving into these darker plots, these more heavy-hitting symbolism. There's a lot of symbolism this episode. But because it came out of nowhere, I was so unprepared. I feel like I could probably go back and do a more in-depth look at the breakdowns. But at the same time, I am so shocked. I really wasn't expecting what we got. It's nice to see the anime starting to change pace. I praise the anime for being able to make me go, wow, WTF. normally I just jump straight to recording after watching. It took me about half an hour to be able to go, okay, I'm ready to do this, because I was just sat there going, what the hell did I just see? Hopefully they don't just gloss over what just happened, because I think this is definitely a character development point for Elaina. I don't know how I feel right now, guys. It has been one hell of an episode. What do you guys think in general about things like time travel? Do you think Estelle should have even bothered going back? I personally do not believe Estelle should have gone back. There's too many variables. It seems like things have gotten a hell of a lot worse. So I guess it's that thing like, guys, just be careful what you wish for, because sometimes if you wish for a lot of money and, you know, a very quick job, you get lumbered into something like this, which changes your entire outlook on life. Poor Elaina. I do feel sorry for Elaina in that sense. If you're like Estelle, be careful what you wish for, because you're not going to remember anything, and you're actually going to see a different side of your best friend. Because think about it like this. In the current timeline, where before going back, she believed there was good in her best friend. She believed that her best friend was able to be saved. She went back and discovered the actual truth when she couldn't save her best friend. Her best friend was beyond saving, and her best friend even tried to kill her, and revealed that she didn't even see her as a best friend. So if in the long run, the truth is actually more painful than what she had to bear with. So one hell of an episode, and kudos to the anime guys for making me actually have to think like this and actually ask those questions. An anime which can make you question like this is an anime which is definitely doing its good job. Amazing philosophical trip thanks to this episode, and it's been an interesting anime episode to watch. Definitely caught me off guard, and I've got to eat now. I've got to eat lunch now. Hopefully it's nothing red. But have a good day, guys. Bye bye.